taking supplements and of all sorts, and fish oils is very common here. A lot of people taking fish oils and, you know, all this joint kind of medication.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, do you think really there's much benefit or not? Or it's hard to say probably, but
I think it's really hard to say. I think, well, so I have a patient who works for Brigham's Women's Hospital, which is like, you know, it's like the Harvard, you know, it's part of that Harvard medical complex. And she works in a lab situation there. And she says, "Oh, I'm the lab that has created all the problems for all the fish in the world." So, you know, kind of tells you something about it. I think that some of these supplements are highly exaggerated. I think that they work for some people and not for some people. So I think that, you know, it's a difficult thing. You know, I mean, since I don't prescribe, I generally don't prescribe, and I certainly don't prescribe fish oil because I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not about to do that. So I think there are some problems with all these things that, sorry, I'm just unmuting Camille.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So, and Camille actually may be a better person to ask about things like supplements, because certainly Northern California is very big on supplements. People love their supplements. You know, it's kind of everything is organically wild crafted, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, like, how come you have 30 bottles of everything? So there's definitely, I think sometimes people just feel the need to take things, and therefore they, you know, they will. It's hard to know because so many of these things, just like with acupuncture, like just like with everything else, how do you know how much of it is placebo? How much of it is how they feel about it? So I basically don't participate in the supplement industry, or however you call it. Industry makes it sound like very negative, but no, you know, I generally do very little of it. And when I do, I generally recommend to people, if you want, you can do this. And I try and send them to the health food store, as opposed to, I really don't stock anything. Because that then really does put me in the category of I have a vested interest. Because in this country, in the US, a lot of practitioners stock things or order for you, or even a lot of companies, you can send the patient to, they'll order it themselves, but the margin here is basically 100%. So if I'm buying something, it will cost me $10. If I sell it to the patient, it's supposed to be 20, or if the patient buys it directly, it's $20. I get the difference, the $10 difference. Okay,
actually, that's
ahead.
less true now, because with people's access to the internet and discount things, I find that I have to price things to be competitive with the best prices on the internet, or they don't buy from me. So that absolutely, I think, is true of you know, brick and mortar health food stores, as we call them, you know, with real buildings. But I don't know that that's really, I don't know what other practitioners are doing, but I don't get 100% markup anymore.
Well,
no, and I never really took it, you know.
Yeah, no, the markup is up to you. But so, for example, the only company that I'm really familiar with, you know, is Standard Process. If a person, and the reason I'm familiar is because I have patients who, you know, they order the stuff from, say, the chiropractor, and they order it themselves. They're still paying $20 for a bottle. I would pay 10. So sometimes they ask me to buy the stuff for them, so that they
I wouldn't pay 20 cents for that brand, but anyway.
Well, that's, you know, it's a very popular. That's a different story, you know. But I'm just, you know,
it's my story.
Sorry?
It's my story.
It's your story. No, I mean, they've done a very good job at basically conquering the market. So, you know, so Standard Process is a supplement company that also has an herbal company, an Australian herb company called, I think, MediHerb. And they're very big here with all the chiropractors and naturopaths and acupuncturists. And so, you know, often I have patients who have supplements from, say, their chiropractor, and they are not cheap, by the way. And so people ask me if there's a way to get it cheaper, and the answer is yes, I can order it for you, but then you have to pick it up from me. You know, because I wouldn't charge them like 100% markup. But anyway, so unfortunately I'm really not, I'm not so big on supplements. And there's a whole world of supplements and functional medicine and stuff that people really get into. And I really see myself as doing acupuncture, and not so much the supplements. Occasionally, yes, and occasionally herbs, you know, if I really want to do something. But, you know, my preference is to give them dietary advice and hope that they might follow it. But again, most people would rather take some sort of pill than look at their diet. That's for the most part. I'm like the opposite, because I'm the kind of person, if I were taking pills, I'd take them the first 3 days. I'm like totally loyal. Oh, I'm going to do this, you know, and then by day 4, it's like I forgot these pills even existed. You know, it's just I don't have the discipline for taking pills or supplements. It just doesn't work for me. I happen to be better at food discipline, but I'm also unique in that sense because, for example, I can eat the same thing every day. I have no problem. You know, other people get bored. You know, it's like most of my patients, if I say, you know, if I give them some advice and they say, well, okay, that's okay, then what do I do next week? What do I do in 3 days? You know, like they will not, they'll eat leftovers, say once, but if it's this pretty much the same menu, they're incredibly bored. And I have a patient, for example, who's trying to lose weight now. She wants a weight loss program. And the first thing she said is, they gave me 26 pages of menus, you know, recipes. All I wanted was the principles. You know, give me the principles first. I'll make my own damn menu. But, you know, and I'm trying to explain to her, you know, you're unusual. Most people actually want to see the recipes because it makes them feel like they know what to, it's possible to do this. If you tell people don't eat bread, you have to give them alternatives, and be very clear about it. So everyone's different. So I don't really, I don't have a huge opinion on supplements. Apparently I do. So, Camille, any thoughts?
Well, hold on just a second. Gracias, thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting back into my hotel room.
Oh.
Because they were cleaning it.
Oh.
Okay.
I hope with good supplements, with good detergent.
Oh, well, it looks like she did a lovely job. Yes, thank you. So anyway, I was standing out in the hallway for the first part. Anyway, well, my take on supplements is that we live in a much more toxic world than we used to. And the food that is available to us, I don't know about Ireland, but certainly in this country, has been so significantly downgraded that that most people are incredibly malnourished. I think, you know, you have to try pretty hard to get adequate nutrition to meet not only, you know, not only the demands of the toxic world, but also the demands of how much we push ourselves. I mean, again, I don't know other parts of the country, but where I am, you know, when people are working 80 and 90 hours a week, I think they need extra nutrition. Then the other side of it is with the advent in the last few years of genetic analysis, which is something that I do. You know, we've realized that some people constitutionally may need 50 or 100 or 150 times the recommended daily allowance of a certain nutrient because of their genetic profile. And when they get it, magic happens. Or maybe they need it in a different chemical form that bypasses enzymes that their body doesn't make. And by giving it in the form of the end stage of the chemical reaction instead of the form that it comes in food. So for example, to give it in methylfolate instead of folate, you know, it becomes life changing for them, and they can avoid, you know, an incredible genetic inheritance of disease. So I think it's a privilege to have these supplements, and I love it. I love prescribing it, and also I have certain supplements that for me personally, I mean, you say, oh, well, after 3 days I would forget, but yes, there are lots of supplements that are that for me, but there are certain supplements that I carry, and I carry with me in my purse or my backpack because I don't want to go a day without them. And I think that's also true of hormone supplementation. I think it's a privilege to have that. I feel as though it makes me so much younger and stronger and healthier to have that. It slowed down my aging process tremendously. So, you know, I'm really big on the supplement side.
Yeah.
You know, and there really are a few supplements that I absolutely recommend to all my patients. Like, I think every human being should be taking them, or certainly every human being over the age of 40. So, ish. And I think it just changes the whole course of your life.
So which ones do you feel are a must for everybody above 40, and hopefully there's less than 40 of them?
Yeah, no, there are. You know, my hit list, absolutely glutathione. I absolutely adore glutathione. It was how, for example, I kicked cancer without any Western intervention whatsoever, no surgery or chemo or radiation or anything like that. That was clearly, to me, the turning point. And I think it slows down my aging process in a very visible way. Like, I can tell when I don't take it, and it also helps my immunity. Countless things. Glutathione, probably number one. Second, methylation vitamins, just because methylation has so many different roles in the body. And the more I have done genetic analysis, the more I realize that pretty much everyone has methylation defects. It's just a question of how severe they are. Some people, it's really obvious that you can see in their family history because it's really profound. Some people, not so much. But by giving those nutrients in the end stage of the chemical reaction, specifically methylfolate and methyl B12, methylcobalamin, you know, it's so significant. It's significant for inflammation in the body, homocysteine, for liver detoxification, for methylation of hormones and neurotransmitters. It's for, breaks down histamine. You know, it's has incredible global effects. So I've seen that be life changing. I love natural hormones, natural progesterone. Oh, I would drive 100 miles if I was out of my progesterone.
Okay.
No, because it's anti-cancer. It completely cures PMS. Almost foolproof for endometriosis, although that takes some time. Postpartum depression, actually most depression, especially in women, and especially women of childbearing years, and particularly teenagers. Oh my God. And it just makes you feel wonderful. It makes you feel happy and strong. It makes your muscles stronger. It makes your mood better. It makes your energy better. Think of progesterone as invigorating liver qi and mildly tonifying yang. And I think it's just really important because of all the synthetic estrogens in the environment, which are a really significant problem for cancer and depression and all kinds of things. So, and it's even an issue. It's a little trickier to work with men, but the synthetic estrogens are really, really a big issue. And when we talked about fertility, I sent you that information.
Yeah.
So, and then I have some that are specific to me, like for instance, vitamin B1 thiamine. My body needs about 150 times the recommended daily allowance. And when I tested low for thiamine, it was really eye-opening, because I tested low about 7 years ago, and I took some, just a general B vitamin supplement, and I felt nothing. And then no, that was about 7 years ago, and then maybe 10 by now. And then I read an article about megadosing thiamine, and when I read all the symptoms, I thought, oh my gosh, this is me. And it talked about doing it in high doses from 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams a day, and the recommended daily allowance is 1 milligram a day. So I tried taking a higher dose, and I settled on about 150 milligrams a day for me, and then magic happened. So that's individual, but the reason I brought it up is because I think it was really it was really demonstrative to me of how you just never know. You just never know whether the standard thinking on something is really true or not. Same with vitamin D. The recommended daily allowance is 400 IUs, but that was set back in the 1930s when they didn't really know what it did. They just thought it prevented rickets. But it's very important for our DNA. So it has so much to do with cell duplication. So anytime you need very strong cells like bone, or you need very rapid cell replication like with the immune system, it's really important. So vitamin D is another big one for me. There was a period of time, maybe 15 years ago, where every single year I was breaking a bone. Like I would twist my ankle, just walking, and I'd end up breaking a bone. And it was just crazy. I was on crutches all the time. And then I started reading more about high vitamin D levels, and now I keep my vitamin D up, and I haven't broken a bone since. Also, when people have immune system issues, I will do a mega dose of 50,000 units of vitamin D, a one time only. And it just raises up the yang energy in order for you to really fight things off. So I do a high dose of C, 50,000 D. I do a double dose of herbal antibiotics. And I tell people, drink a hot drink, cover yourself with blankets, take a nap, and almost foolproof, they will wake up without whatever cold or flu they were coming down with. So, in that same way that we try to relieve surface to get a flu, the D is really instrumental in getting the yang energy to push the disease out. So those are some of the big ones on my hit list.
Cool. Thank you. So to take some of these mega vitamins, you kind of need to take like a whole bottle.
Well, no, because you can get vitamin D in 5,000 or
right. That's still 10. That's still 10 pills.
So 10, but that's a one-time only thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll have people do 10,000 a day until they've completely kicked whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the other really important thing, essential about vitamin D, is that it has to be pure vitamin D. You don't want vitamin D with vitamin K, for example. You never want to mega dose vitamin K. You can have serious bleeding problems from that.
Yeah.
So it just has to be pure D3. So those are just a few that that's my short list.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
I could then also we can go into probiotics and then prebiotics, and that's really big for building serotonin and getting a good night's sleep. I mean, depends where you want to go with it.
Well, they're all supplements.
Well,
so
but
that's still considered.
I don't want to make the list too long, Avi.
Because I said less than 40. So.
And what was the first one again you mentioned, Camille? The gluto something?
Glutathione. GLUTATHIONE. I can send you a link. There's I'll send you a link with some information about it. There's a pharmacy that I order from in Pittsburgh that has a topical cream that's amazing. It's wonderful. I've had 2 people with skin cancer who called me within 48 hours and said, "Is it possible it's working already?" And it was that cream that resolved my breast cancer. It was the turning point not just in my opinion. It was clear. It was very clear that cream was the turning point. So I'll send you a link. This pharmacist has a lot of really good information on it, and if you look on Medline, for example, and Google glutathione, you'll probably, I think, something like 5,000 studies at least on it. So it's, it's not a fly by night kind of thing. Actually, glutathione is something your body makes in order to regenerate itself, and we just make less of it as we age. And that's really the issue. It's one of the hallmarks of an aging cell that it makes less glutathione.
Okay, thank you, Camille.
Sure.
Of course, some of these supplements may not be as easily obtainable in Ireland, but that's a different.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to have this cream per se. But no, actually, friends of mine in Croatia have gotten it on Amazon, for example.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
It sounds good.
Anything else? Anyone?
Well, you were going to tell us about your favorite hit list of points, I thought.
Yes, I was. We were waiting for you to get on. So in the meantime, we were talking supplements. We were supplementing the time. All right. So I thought I would do this a little bit differently, rather than the so-called hit list, because, yes, one can do it that way. And also I sort of sent you like a bunch.
Which was lovely. Thank you so much.
So I thought I would give you my the hit list of my principles, and then the points that are associated with them.
Nice.
Do you know what I'm saying? So there's a difference. There's a difference in quote unquote presentation, maybe, but it still comes to the same thing. Because I think we started with when I said, oh, inner yin is like a really great point, and I use it like pretty much on everyone. So here is, and then, so I wrote it down, and then I'm thinking, well, actually I could rearrange it, but it's like, we'll start it the way I did, because I'm realizing that it's not arranged very well. But so the first principle that I almost always started with people has always traditionally been to release the neck. Okay. And that means to release both the neck and the throat, meaning the SCM and the scalings. And the reason why is because this is the pathway of the brain communicating with the body, and vice versa. So it controls the nervous system, et cetera, as well as blood flow to the brain. So, and which also presents a whole other question, which I don't know if it's philosophical or biological, which is, is the body there to feed the brain, or is the brain there to feed the body? Which is which is the primary organ? It's kind of an interesting question, but that's a sort of different. So in terms of releasing the neck, what you have is you have your Sanjiao 8, a third down from the elbow. You have your kidney points, kidney 7 and 9. They do release both the cervicals and the SCM, okay? And not just because of thyroid, but, they're definitely important for thyroid people. And then you have inner yin, releases the neck, both front and back. And then you have spleen 3, okay? And if we're talking about occiput, then bladder 2 comes into the picture as well. So to some extent, bladder 2 has a release neck option. Bladder 2 is an interesting point. It both releases the neck and it unties the diaphragm. Okay, now I'm sounding.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
It's helpful for the people who have tightness in the Ren line above Ren 12. Um, bladder 2 is very good. The thing about bladder, so here's this thing with bladder 2, and I was just thinking how anti-diaphragm sounds like on Bob Flaws or something, you know, with these Victorian languages, you know, the untying of the diaphragm. But the thing about bladder 2 is that a lot of things ultimately, this is the weird, you know, this question about brain body, you know, which is really primary, is or who's there to serve whom, you know, if one were to separate them, quote unquote, is that at the end of the day, anything that comes that communicates between the body and the brain is going to have to do with perception. Okay, I mean, it's how the brain perceives the state of the body and how the body perceives the signals from the brain, right? And the biggest organ of perception, or the most pronounced, let's say, for most people, are the eyes. If I can change how I'm seeing, I can change a lot of other things in the body. One of the things that I give people as an exercise is most of us, when we look, we're sending our eyes out. Instead of just letting things come into us, let the eyes come back to the back of the skull. I mean, don't push them, just let them relax towards the back of the skull and let the images come in towards the back of the skull. And that has a very strong effect of relaxing a lot of tensions in the body that are totally unrelated to the eyes. So bladder 2 is a very good point for pain, for tightness in the diaphragm, which is often nervous system tightness, and releasing the back of the neck. Okay, so it's a really useful point. It is one of my so-called hit list. Now, bladder 2 you can take in a number of different places. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. So you can just look for the dent, you know, at the eyebrow. Now, because the thing is, like, you know, for me, the edge of my eyebrow, well, it's kind of above UB1, but it could have been basically an yin tongue, right? And if I had very thin eyebrows, it could be, you know, it can go in a number of different places. But basically, what you're looking for is either a dent or a slight puffiness. If you go slightly towards gallbladder 14, you will find almost like a little hill. Okay, and that's another bladder 2 that's fairly effective. Okay, so I wouldn't get too committed as to where bladder 2 is, and a lot of, you know, Kika, for example, you know, always combines bladder 2 with Yu Yao. It's almost like an automatic bladder 2 plus Yu Yao. So that's one thing. So the releasing of the neck. The next thing is always to make sure that they have a downward and an upward motion in the legs. Okay, so it's there is an expression called shuai, which when they describe the channels, it says there are 3 channels that are supposed to have this character shuai that has both an upward and a downward. You know, it's basically to stomp, to kick. Okay, is what the character means. And it's somewhat similar to Chow, okay, like Yin Chow, Yang Chow. It's a similar character. And so what happens is people come and they'll be, you know, almost like shuffling when they're walking, but what you see is when they're sitting, their heels are off the floor. And it's not because they're short. You know, they just automatically, they don't put their heels down. They don't press down to the floor. And they also don't sit on their thighs. They're sitting on their buttocks. They're not sitting on their sit bones. Okay. So having shuai is very important, because if you don't have this downward movement, you're not pushing down a little bit in order to pull up, gravity takes over. Okay. And then the whole abdomen congests, which is related to the so-called third principle. Shuai exists in the spleen channel, the kidney channel, and the bladder channel. Okay, it's described, you know, that these 3 channels have it. So now kidney 7, you can feel it very clearly. You can feel that everything from the, you know, from the calf is falling down at kidney 7 on many people. You know, it's literally like floppy, flabby, falling down. And the name of the point is called folio, to bring back the flow. recover the flow. Okay, so kidney 7 is very important. Kidney 6 can be, because separating the malleolus from the heel creates space in the rest of the leg. Okay, spleen 3 definitely has it, because the way you stand on spleen 3, you know, the arches of the foot, because spleen 3 basically affects both the lateral arch across the shoe points of the foot and the I don't know what you call the longitudinal arch, which is spleen 3, spleen 4 to kidney 2, right? And then the bladder channel has it at bladder 35, because that's literally your support, and it's called Cheng Fu, this supporting the support, receiving the support, and bladder 58, Fei Yang, the flying yang. And by the way, there's a whole bunch in the bladder channel, there's a whole bunch of points between the bladder 40 and 60. They either have, all of them, every single one, either has the character yang in it, or it has the character Cheng to support in it. So that's another principle. The calves, you know, when people talk about the 5 shoe points and, you know, the most important points are below the elbow, but, you know, most of these points are really below the wrist. And most of us don't really need a lot much below the wrist. The calf is actually in some ways more important, because the weight, once the weight hits the ankle, but then it gets distributed in the foot. So those points in some ways are going to be less supportive of the body. Stomach 41 will be liver 4. The ones that are at the ankle are still related to the body very clearly, but once you pass the ankle, you pass a joint that's never really straight through, sort of thing, whereas the calves are always supporting the body. Okay, there's no way out of that. I mean, except of course if you're sitting. Okay, so and then the other point, and that's kind of related to this concept of the calf, spleen 9. Spleen 9, and you know, gallbladder 34 I use a little bit less, but it's so what you see in people with gravity, with age, you're seeing that there's puffiness in spleen 9. It starts to fall down. So, you know, needling it upwards is very important. The name Yinling Chuan, okay? Forget the yin part, but because, yeah, you know, gallbladder 34 is Yangling Chuan. The Ling, the Chuan is a fountain to generate upwards, and the Ling is a mound, things that are falling, accumulating downwards. So it's a point that has the ability to move, to generate an upward movement, okay, from below the knee. And in fact, the knee, there's another Chuan in the knee, which is liver 8. The Chu Chuan, the bending spring, the bending fountain. But knee, so the Chinese clearly saw that the knee has the capacity to generate, which is interesting because, you know, for example, in French, the word for knee is genou, which is basically the same as generate. The knee has the capacity of generating. No, and the Chinese saw a similar thing when they say chuan. In Hebrew, the word is berech for knee, which literally means a pool. Brecha is a swimming pool. You know? So in many cultures, you know, the knees are the place of generation, you know, which is possibly, I don't know, why, you know how they always say the knees belong in the liver and kidney categories? You know, like it's you know, we just take it for granted that if you have knee problems, it must be liver or kidney. And we say, oh, it's because of tendons and bones. You know, it's a joint. But I think it's because it's a generation, it's a capacity of generating. If you don't, I mean, you know, if you don't have a knee, you can't move, basically. You know, if you can't bend the knee, it's much, much harder to do anything. So that's the moving down and moving up, and the points that are associated with them. And then actually the reason you want that, I mean, all of these are related, obviously, but because it's in the body, it's in the body. But what you want to do is you need to create space in the abdomen. You need to create some sort of what I call hollowness. The abdomen should be hollow, not harsh, okay? And the perineal floor needs to be lifted. Otherwise, everything is congested. All the organs are going to be congested if the abdomen isn't, quote unquote, fluffy. Okay, and not flabby, but fluffy, meaning it, you know, because flabby is just pushing down gravity. So it may be soft, but there's no space there. It doesn't have a quality of airiness. Okay, the organs are not going to work well if it's just flabby and falling, but the organs will work well if it's spacious, if it's fluffy. Okay, so the points that help with that are inner yin and side gallbladder 27 mushu. Okay, so gallbladder 27 and 28 can be taken at the inguinal groove, or you can just take them all the way to the side below gallbladder 26. And by name, one is called Wei Dao, gallbladder 28 is Wei Dao, the linking, the way of linking. So to link the body, to create a network in the body. And gallbladder 27 is called the 5 pivots. Okay, wushu. So it's a pivot for the body. They give support for the body. Okay, and another point that does that is liver 4. Okay, so those are the points that kind of like to create space in the abdomen. And then the next thing you want to do is untighten the diaphragm. Make sure the diaphragm isn't tight. Because if the diaphragm is tight, now the nervous system is affected, your breathing is affected, meaning all your metabolism is affected. So it's really important to release the diaphragm. Now notice we can sense the diaphragm primarily from the front and possibly from the side. We tend not to think about it so much in the back, you know, T7 to T10 area, or even T5 to T10 area, you know, like in the ribs and stuff, but it's the capacity to open up the ribs. Okay, so bladder 2 is a big one. Sanjiao 8 is a big one. That under the third toe is a big one for that. And then take gallbladder 29, but move just slightly in front of the trochanter rather than take it on top of the trochanter. So gallbladder 29, you know, what that does is it opens up the space between the thigh and the torso. So if now you're not sinking into the torso, the diaphragm can open. And that point, by the way, is also very good for ankle problems, because again, if I'm taking some of the weight, maybe quote unquote metaphorically, but I'm separating the leg from the torso. Now, not all the weight of the torso is falling into the leg, it's not falling into the ankle either. Okay, so it's a good point for ankle problems as well. But first and foremost, it's for the diaphragm. The next principle is make sure the spine is undulated, that the spine is free and moving. Okay, so at the base you have the sacroiliac ligaments. Okay, so wherever it's tight, but you know, usually the most powerful place there, you know, you're looking for the gummiest, but the one that's most likely to work is right outside UB32. So that will be so-called UB53. Okay, you know, the Bawang. Okay, and then do.
Can I ask why you phrased it that way? Like
why I phrased
outside UB32, and then
meaning UB32.
Why didn't you just say UB53? I mean, what is it? What no, but I mean, what is it about how we find it that's different?
Because it's a lot, well, because I don't really know how to find UB53 any other way.
Oh, okay. But it is actually UB53.
Would be, yeah. I mean, so basically, okay, the reason why is because basically what I do, okay. So with the sacroiliac ligaments, there's a problem. With some women, but definitely very rare with men. With some women, you can actually go into the sacroiliac ligament between the iliac bone and the sacrum. On most people, it's too narrow. It's too tight there. So what I'm actually doing is I'm going out further lateral to get the sacroiliac ligament from where it folds over onto the iliac bone. So I'm really on the iliac bone at that point, and I'm not between the sacrum and the iliac. It's a person who's fairly loose and fairly wide, that you can literally get a needle in between the sacrum and the iliac crest. It's just not that simple to do. So basically, I'm really slightly over on the iliac side, And so that's why I'm saying, because I'm always coming into it from the inside, and also because generally speaking, people think of UB32 as the powerful point out of the four, foramens. Okay, so that's why I'm saying outside UB32. Does that make sense?
I don't know. Do you have a piece of paper you could draw a diagram and hold it up or something? Or, I mean, I don't know if I'm entirely understanding, but maybe, I mean, I think I am, but I don't feel sure.
I actually have a slide on that, a PowerPoint slide.
Oh, okay.
And I will send it.
You have everything, Avi.
Yeah, but, okay, hold on. So I'm drawing now. Okay, so can you see?
Okay. Yep. Okay.
So this is the sacroiliac ligaments, and they actually go even under the iliac crest where there's no sacrum, so that can't really be called sacroiliac ligaments, obviously. But the ligament goes from the sacrum out to the iliac bone. But if I try and go on this line where I drew the sacrum, I will not be successful with most people. So I'm actually taking it more lateral.
Okay.
And going on a slightly fleshier part, but I'm really at that point over the iliac bone.
Okay, I'm glad you drew it because that's further out than I would have gone. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm definitely, that's what I'm saying. You know, it is a further out. It tends to be more lateral than what would officially be called. You're still over the sacroiliac ligament because but you're not in between the sacrum and the iliac.
And you're still going along for gumminess wherever there's gumminess.
Definitely looking for the gumminess. Definitely,
okay.
Literally like
thank you.
Sometimes ping pong balls. No, I mean really, they can feel like there's a ping pong ball there, especially people with autoimmune disorders. That's very typical. Okay. So the sacroiliac ligaments. Sorry, Mary Jo.
Before you move from the point location, you mentioned a different location for gallbladder 29 as well.
Yeah, but different location for which?
To locate the point, gallbladder 29.
The location for gallbladder. So instead of going on top of the trochanter, which is the official name, the official location for gallbladder 29, just go in front of the trochanter. Because if you go on top of the trochanter, I'm trying to create the space in the bursa, between the hip and the torso. So if I'm hitting it on top of the trochanter, I'm really not separating the torso and the thigh. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. But
so just slightly in front or even above. Above is even better in a way.
Okay. Just looking at my point location book here, it kind of locates it on top of the ASIS, kind of.
No way. No, not gallbladder 29. Sorry. If they're saying anything about the ASIS, it should be below the ASIS at the trochanter. In my opinion, I could be wrong. I'll check it. I'll get some other book. I'll get my book and we'll see if my book says something different. Okay. Competition of the books. My belief is that gallbladder 29 is it's definitely, the ASIS is way too high. ASIS is basically level, it's a little higher than rank 4. The ASIS, so there's just no, there's the reference to the ASIS, in my opinion, doesn't make sense with gallbladder 29. And it's called, the name is Juliao, the squatting Liao. Okay, and what squatting gives you, I mean, I know we generally have this feeling of squatting as like, a bunch of Indians having tea somewhere, squatting, and, it kind of suggests kind of like, just having a little social, like playing mahjong, but in a squatting position sort of thing. But if you think about it, squatting is what gives you power. From a squat, you can do a lot more. As and not so much for us, because now that we have an upright posture, but if you're looking at an animal squats in order to pounce. Okay, so it's that bending in order to push out that gallbladder 29 gives you. So What book are you using?
Well, I like this one. It's Claudia Fox, Atlas of Acupuncture.
Oh, okay. Can we see the picture? Do they have a, since it's
Yeah,
an
well,
atlas, it
actually,
must be a picture.
yeah, I can show you the picture. But the description is probably.
You have to lift it up a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So you see, it's at the trochanter. In my, if it's that white dot, if it's supposed to be that white dot, then it's at the trochanter.
Well, the white dot is the trochanter, yeah, but the actual point location is
Further up and inwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. I would have to go look at some book. I'll get back to you and see what the official location is, according to the non-Claudia sources.
Okay.
My recollection has always been that it's basically at the trochanter, but maybe I'm wrong. So what I'm looking for is basically going around the trochanter, either above the trochanter or in front of the trochanter, but basically trying to separate the thigh from the torso. That's my intention there. That's what I'm trying to look at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So back to the spine, then the other point that sort of starts undulating the spine is due to, okay, and as well as the nervous system. You know, more so the due to has a stronger. Sacroiliac ligaments will probably have a stronger effect on the structure. Due to will have a stronger effect on the nervous system component of the spine. Okay, and then I'm looking at the highest points. Okay, the places where the curve is either at its highest or it switches. Okay, so that's so granted the due-4 is supposed to be the height of the kyphotic of the lordotic curve. I don't find due-4 to be, or the Wattos of due-4 to be that significant. I do find UB52 to be significant, and I'll go into that in a second. But when we talk about the spine, it's T11, T12, T7, and T5. These are the points that have like the strongest curve change in the spine. And then to support that, you can do due-16, sort of elongating the spine out. And then small intestine 9-10, I use lots because again, you're spreading out the spine, you're opening the spine, you're allowing the spine to quote unquote undulate. Okay. Then the next principle is to unblock circulation of the chest. Okay, and in that, by that I mean it's actually kind of locally. So, and here's interestingly enough is where UB52 comes into it. So you have the small intestine 9-10 to help open up the chest and the back. What happens is most people have like gummy stuff and tightness in the area between the two shoulder blades, and that basically blocks the circulation of the ability of the heart and the lungs to pump. So you want to basically unblock that. So that's your UB42, UB43, UB44. Okay, and that's, you know, so that's one of the places with heart and lung at the end of the treatment. After you've done whatever you've done, you need to actually treat them, quote unquote, directly. Okay. Now, what bladder 52 does is it supports this capacity by supporting the waist. Because if you think about it, if, again, it's the same thing of the up and down, if you have a, you know, if the waist is congested downwards, and we normally would be because there are no bones except the spine at the level of the waist, between your ASIS and your ribs, there are no bones. So you have to somehow create this elongation of the waist, or else it will just fall. The ribs will, you know, could conceivably touch the hips, you know, if there's nothing, you know. So UB52 is a really, you know, needle towards the spine, supports the ability to lift the ribs away from the hips, and therefore make the chest work better. Okay, so I don't know if that made sense, but so yeah. And then the last part in terms of principles is what I call to relax the brain, or to bring the brain backwards. Because if the brain's too much in the front part, that's a sort of like a tight analytical controlling kind of brain that's not a, you know, if you'd like a healing brain, okay? Whereas the healing brain is sort of in the back. You want to, you know, you want to bring the attention, the awareness further back so as to relax the front of the brain. So you, for that you have the line between DO24 and stomach 8, whether it's gallbladder 13, gallbladder 15, stomach 8, or DO24, something, you know, that kind of stuff. Bladder 2 plays a role in that. And then this area that the tongue people call correct tendons, you know, it's sort of kidney 3, kidney 7 area, but on the, they take it literally on the tendon. You know, they say it releases the back of the neck. But again, this is related to that whole bladder line in the back of the calf. All of that can do it, including gallbladder 39, by the way. It sounds like somebody was going to have a question.
No.
Okay.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
But no. Well, I mean, do you think of that just simply as kidney 8, or, I mean?
No, no, because I'm really looking further back towards the bladder line. I mean, much more lateral. In other words, I'm preferring the gallbladder side of it than the kidney side of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said kidney 3 to 7.
Sorry. Correct tendon. Okay, correct tendon. Genjing Zhenjiang, you know, these are master tongue points. I think it's
right.
701, 702, I don't know.
But you always have a unique take on things, and I think that's why I was hesitating.
No. So basically, the way I would have located, the way I learned from Miriam to locate them, you know, I don't know if that's the official tongue way, was you take kidney 3 and you go back on the tendon. So basically, the correct tendon one is from kidney 3 back on the tendon. They lie face down, and then so it's basically between the bladder channel and the kidney channel, literally on the midline. So between 60 and bladder 60 and kidney 3, what you have is this correct tendon. Mm-hmm. And the correct ancestor is level with kidney 7. Same thing, go to it onto the Achilles tendon. Needle it from the back. But instead of, you know, like, who the hell wants to needle into a tendon? You know, it's not very kind, you know. So better to, you know, what I'm saying is you can do it from the slightly more towards the bladder channel. So rather than going from the kidney channel, go kidney 8 close to the tendon, go pretend there was a kidney 8 on the bladder channel. Or a gallbladder 39 or UB58. So that whole line of the bladder, the lateral part of the midline and lateral, literally from the knee downwards, has that effect of bringing the attention back to the posterior brain, and releases the neck also, by the way. Does that make sense?
I, for one, may want to have a whole separate discussion on this particular treatment principle, because I'm looking at the time, and I don't know that I fully get this aspect, and it's quite interesting to me.
I'll try and get drawing up, like you know, I'll try and get it up for next week's, and then that hopefully
that would be fabulous. Yeah, because I don't feel as though I quite have this down.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay. Fair enough.
However, I think this whole day is quite fascinating and makes me want to fly out to get some treatments from you, Avi. But we'll have to try that sometime.
You'll just have to
please carry on. Let's
glutathione will have to work now
for next time. Yeah.
All right. So then, that's in terms of protocol. So you see, what I do is I'm looking at the structure first. Okay, I'm trying to make sure that there is a structure that's operational for a patient, and only then am I looking at, like, you know, whether you're Chinese and doing 5 organs, excess deficiency, you know, whatever else that I'm doing. I'm first setting up so that structurally that there is a space for the organs to work. Because all the other diagnoses that you say, oh, it's thyroid, or it's spleen, or it's whatever it is that we decide that our favorite diagnosis for that person is. If the actual container of it all is congested, pressing, twisted, you know, and I don't mean twisted in the sense of scoliosis, but if it's not allowed, it may not allow the organ to work. So I can diagnose somebody as, okay, you have asthma, and, you know, let's say I'm a Western doctor, and I'll give you some, you know, inhaler, you know, so, you know, like enough prednisone should solve the problem, sort of thing. Okay. But if they're constantly being pushed, their, you know, either their shoulders are pushing on their chest, or even, what I'm saying is even the legs can create a downward push in the chest, then it's all useless. You know, then they'll be taking prednisone, there, you know, you know, inhalers their whole life, and nothing's going to change, because I've ignored the container in which the problem is. Okay? So I'm always looking first at the container and the ability of the container to, you know, if you like it in Chinese terms, to communicate between heaven and earth. That sounds lovely, doesn't it? Because the person's supposed to be between heaven and earth. But is there a down and an up, and is there a space in this body? Because without space, nothing can work. It doesn't matter how, just my opinion, how chemically manipulative you're going to be and give them all the best nutrition, medication, blah, 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 blah. If that space doesn't exist for things to work, eventually it will just fall again. So that's just my way of thinking. So then when it comes to popular points that I like to use in terms of systems, then that's actually very short, strangely enough. So I use the immune points a lot, large intestine 10, 11 on the edge of the bone, obviously. For the nervous system, I use Sanjiao 8 a lot, tons, and Sanjiao 5 maybe if they have rapid pulse. I use the pericardium, and here comes a really interesting phenomenon. The most important point for the pericardium, or most popular point, is what I call pericardium 4, about 3 fingers below pericardium 3. Now, and I have a whole slide in that, and I'll try and do that for next time. There's like a little hollow there, but it's almost like a chwai. You know, it's another chwai phenomenon. If we were standing on our hands, the pericardium channel would have chwai, because when you stand on your hand and it ends with pericardium 1, which is the heavenly pool, Tianchi. So if I was standing on heaven, it will pull down, or if I'm not standing in heaven, but my arm is out, it pulls down into pericardium 1. So the same concept of there has to be a movement up and down, like in the kidney channel, has to happen in the arms too, except we don't have to stand on our arms, so nobody cares. But if you were to care, the place to get that chwai, that up-down capacity, is pericardium 4. Okay, and I'll get a picture for that for next time, because I actually have some, you know, it's just people standing on their hands, so you can see it. And then, of course, under the third toe is one of my most popular points. When a patient doesn't respond, or rather if I ask them, I press, you know, I try different points and I say to them, is this better? Is your neck better? Is your shoulder better? Is blah, blah better? And they go, oh, yeah, I can, yeah, maybe. Da, da, da. If they start raising my blood pressure, they get under the third toe. And 92%, let's say, of cases, they start being able to respond. It makes a huge difference. Okay, it's an amazing point in that respect. And sometimes nothing will move before you do under the third toe. Okay, which is officially a blood pressure point, low blood pressure, high blood pressure. Officially, it's a blood pressure point, but it affects the nervous system. Okay, and Do2 is another point that affects the nervous system. Then for the hormonal system, I use lots UB66, which most people kind of go, what the hell's, what's the story with UB66? So 66, the name of the point is Tonggu. The penetrating valley, but to penetrate also, it's like a diplomat. To penetrate, you have to negotiate. So it's literally what hormones do. they negotiate, they penetrate. Okay? No, I mean, I know it sounds kind of
Yeah, I like it.
but it's small intestine 3, which is you can say is a point. So of course the small intestine channel should relate to hormones because it separates the pure from the turbid. You know, so theoretically it should. Small intestine 3 specifically, you know, is related to the pituitary. And you can see it even with the point names because you have a before and after. With small intestine 2 is a before, okay? It's before the valley and Jianggu, and the small intestine 3 is after the stream, Hoshi. And the only place where you have a before and after is around Du20, before the vertex, after the vertex. So the names reflect, it's almost like you took your small intestine channel and put it on your Du channel on the top of the head, which may be, I don't know, but it might be why they decided that small intestine 3 is the opening point for the Du. Okay? Because if you're thinking, practically speaking, people always say that small intestine 4 is a better point for back pain, for spine pain. Always, almost everyone says that small intestine 4 is a better point when it comes to the back. Not so much the neck, but when it comes to the rest of the back. So somehow small intestine 3 is more associated with the upper Du, and I believe the pituitary. Okay. Inner yin, which is how the whole discussion started, that inner yin is a hormonal point, is definitely a hormonal point, relates to hormones. Okay. And bladder 2 relates to hormones. In the Ling Shu, bladder 1 is called Mingmen. Okay, Mingmen does not refer to Du 4 in the Ling Shu. Okay. And also to some extent liver 4, which is a point I use lots because it's a point for cysts and fibroids, which are often related to hormonal problems. Okay. So anyone who comes with any sort of overgrowth of anything, they're generally going to be a liver 8 category. I can't guarantee 100% that everyone, but you know, most of them will. So liver 8 is the fatty liver type, the cancer type, the cyst type, the blah, you know, anything that's extra growth in the body, uncontrolled growth in the body. And the last system that I have is for circulation is, I talked about pericardium 4. It's considered to be sending blood towards the abdomen. We talked about bladder 42 to 44, 45, you know, the inner border of the scapula needled out towards the scapula. And also to consider, you know, and especially if there happens to be lung issues, lung 5 or lung 4. Lung 4 definitely opens up the ribs capacities. Okay. And to consider in circulation spleen. Spleen is part of circulation. In fact, I would, this sounds a little bit weird, I would make the point that that first comes the spleen and only then comes the heart. And this is why. If you're a single cell organism, you don't have a mouth, you don't have an anus, you don't have a digestive tract. You're basically absorbing nutrients in and out of your so-called skin. As you develop, quote unquote, evolutionarily, when we're becoming more complex systems, at some point there's too many cells in the organism. Not all the cells are going to be able to absorb nutrient and excrete waste products into the environment. Okay, so now we need a digestive tract. Okay, so we started creating a mouth and a digestive tract and then an anus to get rid of waste. Once we have that, at some point, now the organism grows even further. Okay, and that's not a huge amount, you know, because nutrients can't be absorbed directly from that central tract into all the cells. So now we need a circulatory system. So the digestive system actually comes before the digestive system in terms of priorities. So the heart that is supposed to be this big emperor is actually a subservient. It was really meant to serve the spleen. to serve the digestive system. It's kind of an odd concept, but the only reason why this is really important, practically speaking, is because spleen and pericardium points work really well together. They're synergistic. Okay, which does not necessarily make sense in terms of, you know, people who do this thing, Shao Yin to Shao Yin, Jui Yin to, you know, like pericardium is supposed to work well with liver, which it does. But, you know, the spleen's supposed to work, you know, like if you're doing the Wang Ju Yi thing and stuff, spleen, Tai Yin, supposed to work with lung. They're not like the best synergies necessarily. Sometimes, yes, you know, if you have lung issues like spleen 4, lung 5 is a great point for asthma or lung infections or things like that. But generally speaking, the spleen and the lungs they're not, the lungs and the kidneys are good synergies. Okay, but when you're looking for synergy for the spleen on the arm, to me, it's the pericardium. It's another circulatory, because the circulation is the purpose of circulation and the purpose of digestion come together. So that's what I had for quote unquote my popular points.
Wow.
You know.
Thank you.
So, I forgot one. Sanjiao 22. You know, which relates to sending the brain backwards. You know, relaxing the brain. And when I say Sanjiao 22, I mean this whole area of the whole Taiyang kind of area. It can be gallbladder 6, 7, you know, it doesn't have to be Sanjiao 22 precisely. It can be more front, more back, you know, it can be above. It doesn't have, it's not going to be a lot below Sanjiao 22, but the whole area above Sanjiao 22 is extremely important for relaxing the brain and the nervous system.
And are you looking more for gumminess or puffiness, or are you looking more to release a certain...
to release whatever I can release.
Okay.
I mean, you get a little, there's a, you know, generally the point that's going to be effective might have a little bit of puffiness in it. Not gummy. It's rare to have gummy on the skull. I mean, what I would call gummy, because gummy has a tightness to it. But puffy and gummy are similar maybe, but puffy is softer. I'm going to start a whole dictionary, you know.
Yeah.
The gummy versus the puffy versus the tight versus the...
Yeah.
What about the dent, Abby?
Sorry? A dent, yeah, a dent definitely, but a dent generally, a dent works better if there's a little extra tissue on it. Because if it's just a dent and you're basically on the bone, it might be really effective. I won't say no, but what are you needling into at that point? You know what? I'm always trying to break down connective tissue. I'm always aiming at, in my mind at least. I have no idea what the needle's doing because I'm on the other side. I can't see what happens under the skin, but in my mind, I'm breaking down connective tissue. I'm realigning the connective tissue so it's more crystalline. You know, so the tissue is aligned as opposed to globbed all together. You know, like an opaque plastic is globbed molecules. A crystal and a plastic you can see through, the molecules are more aligned. They're more crystal alignment. I'm always trying to do that with a needle, break down the globulation of the connective tissue. So if you're literally on the bone, if you just have a dent and it's very tight, you know, the skin's on top of the bone, it's not likely to get you very good results. Just like when in spleen 9, if spleen 9 comes out and, you know, is needed, like they are an appendix type, and it's not likely to work as well as if the person has very tight spleen 9 and the skin's totally tight on the bone versus the person who has like what I call the chubby spleen 9. There's a lot of flesh there and it's like falling downwards. That person is going to get much more like, whoa, this point really did it, versus the person that's it's all very tight. So it's the same thing on the scalp, that if it's super, super tight, it will probably do something. You know, I'm not saying it can't, but if there's a dent and there's some puffiness there, there's some accumulation of something, you're actually moving more, in my imagination at least. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So
Wow, thank you.
you're welcome. So I will go and get my glutamate.
I'll send you a link right now.
Oh, yeah, because I want to make sure that I'm not aging either. So,
Well, I cannot promise you that.
oh, bummer.
That's just that it might happen a little more slowly.
Well, okay. As long as it's not too, as long as I can see results and doesn't get too slow.
Well, you're still welcome to age.
Well, yes, I guess I will. I already have. So I've lost the battle already. So,
I doubt it.
all
It's
right.
not lost.
Well, it's maybe not lost, but it's a lot of it has been fought already. All right. Well, enjoy your week.
Okay.
And
Good to Abby. Thank you.
you're most welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Avi. Okay,
Bye.
see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.